told your friend you're not okay? And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way.
Hi guys, I'm coming to you live from the hospital here in Düsseldorf. This is my second trip to the hospital this month. Unfortunately, I've been here just about a week and it can be tough. I mean, in general, I'm not a hospital person at all, so I was not keen on coming here in the first place, but I'll kind of explain my story a little bit. And even though I've been here in Germany for more than 8 years now, I am constantly learning new things. Like, it never ends. And I guess that's why it's so great that I'm able to still continue this channel and then report on experiences that I have along the way. So I had an experience a while back, I want to say maybe 3 years back now, where I was stung by a wasp and I rushed into Emerge after like 3 or 4 days, where my entire arm was just like swollen all the way up to my armpit, and it was excruciating, the pain. And they didn't help me. And I will link that video up above so you can check it out if you want, just based on that first experience I had. So naturally, I was a little bit nervous to come to the hospital for a second and now third time. There is a lot that I have learned this time, actually thanks to a bunch of you guys who told me and gave me some great tips on what I should have done. So I took these ways around it. And I would like to share some of these tips with you guys, just so that you can learn from my mistakes before you actually make these mistakes yourselves. And I really, really hope that this helps. So I guess before I go into some of these tips, you're probably wondering, well, why the heck am I here? So the first time I arrived here, I was actually having excruciating pain down below. I'm pregnant. I am now 21 weeks pregnant, and I was having really, really bad pains in my leg where I could barely walk. So naturally, from my first birth, I had insufficient cervix, which then had me really worried this time that it could have something to do with that. I was not sure. I have a cervix insufficiency, which basically means you're stuck lying down until the end of your pregnancy. So that means about 4 months for me. And I had really, really bad leg pain, and now they're thinking it might be thrombose. How do you say it in English? Thrombosis, I think it might be in English. And so I'm just waiting for them to do the ultrasound on my leg. And they already did all the belly scans and everything, and yeah, they just said it's too short and you gotta go on bed rest. So they're just finishing up some tests. Hopefully I can leave today, fingers crossed. I'm always so tired here, you can't sleep well. But this hospital is actually back in my old hood here in Düsseldorf and Unterberg, so at least I got to see a little bit of my old area in the city. So I was aware that when you're pregnant, you're usually treated a little bit better than when I had gone in for that wasp sting. So it was definitely a lot better. What I did do is I actually called the hospital ahead of time, so that was really, really helpful. They knew I was coming. I still had to go through the ER and register everything before I could actually go up to the Kreissaal, so like the gynecologist area of the hospital. But they were prepared for me at least. So that was a couple weeks ago. I've been on bed rest since. My son then came home last week from the kita, just complaining of a tummy ache. A couple hours later, he had a bout of diarrhea, and that was that. He was better. And I was like, great, perfect. I'm so glad he didn't have the flu. And then a couple hours later into that night, I started having stomach problems, and I was really, really sick. I was vomiting. It was not pretty. It lasted that whole night. It lasted another night. It lasted another night and another night. And I ended up losing 4 kilos. And I guess generally you'd probably think, oh, that's so cool. Like, I want to lose weight. However, I'm also pregnant. And I was really, really worried about what was going to happen. And then when the 5th night came and the same thing happened, I thought, okay, I hate the hospital, but I have to go because I have to check on the baby. There could be a chance that there wasn't enough amniotic fluid left, and because I was so dehydrated, I was really weak. I could barely walk. So I then went back to the hospital, waited 4 hours in the ER, went through all of these different tests with like internalist specialists who were looking inside my stomach to see if anything had gone wrong. They just confirmed that I was severely dehydrated And then I got baby checked and they said, no, everything looks good for the baby. She's still healthy and kicking and moving around, but that my cervix was even shorter and I was going to have to be admitted, especially if I was going to get the IV and the anti-nausea medication that I needed. So that came in and I was hooked up once I was admitted into the hospital and I got my room set up. I actually am in the room by myself, which is really nice and not all that common, but because I'm on the gynecologist floor due to my insufficient cervix, I actually also was able to have my own room because of the virus. So I'm in isolation right now. I'm not allowed to leave my room, but I also don't have anybody else sharing the room with me. So I have a 3-person room to myself at least, which allowed me to make this week's video for you. I am healthy now, baby is healthy. I haven't really started eating much yet, but hopefully I'll get there soon. And yeah, that's pretty much the story. So fingers crossed that I have a better remaining pregnancy from now on out. The first few months were hard. I was always nauseous. Second trimester is supposed to be the golden trimester and I've been having not the best luck. So diabetes test comes up in a few weeks and I did have pregnancy diabetes with my first child. So what are the chances that I'm gonna get it again? I don't want to know. Anyway, fingers crossed. And here are some of the tips that I really want you guys to take away from this video so that you don't make the same mistakes I did. So first things first, as I mentioned, calling ahead is always going to be really, really important. This is not something that I ever did in Canada, so it's not something that I ever thought I would need to do. However, I'm really, really glad that I did it this time. So before you call the hospital, I would highly advise to go through the process of calling anybody else that you possibly can before you call the hospital. They are really, really busy. If you go to the ER, you are typically going to have to wait 2, 3, 4 hours before you are seen by a doctor. Another really good tip is that if you do have an issue that is so urgent that you need to go to the hospital, you're probably better off calling an ambulance and going to the hospital that way, so that if you were like me and were super faint and just really needed an infusion because you had lost so much liquid through being so sick, for example, they would have been able to connect that for you in the ambulance, versus I sat there for 4 hours before I was even seen, and then I had to wait another couple hours before they could even agree to put the fluids into this connector cable, whatever you call it, I'm not sure. So if you need immediate help, call the ambulance before you actually take yourself and admit yourself into the ER. However, if it's something that you are able to, wait around for and call and get some advice on, call everybody you can before. So first things first, you guys told me this from the get-go and I should have done it. Call 116, 117, this, or 116, 117. This is kind of like a Notfall number, an emergency number, where you ask them who you should be contacting, and they will maybe tell you where there's a local pharmacy that's open to get certain medications. They're not doctors, so they can't tell you what to do, but they can tell you who you need to contact. So in this case, we told them my symptoms and they said, yeah, okay, you're gonna have to go to the hospital. IFOK, which is the closest, one of the closer hospitals to me, is open and takes patients like this. So didn't help me too much. So my next tip would be call your house arts, so your family doctor, if they are open. That would be the best place to start. So we actually called them, we told the receptionist what was wrong with me and if we were able to get some advice from the doctor. So it took them a couple hours to get back to me because obviously they had to find some time where the doctor had a free moment to give me a call back and let me know what I could do. But he had a couple pieces of advice as well. He told me, yes, you definitely need an infusion. He also advised me, if you can hold out and wait another day before you go to the hospital, you also have to realize by going to the hospital pregnant and being put on perhaps a floor with other viruses, then you're also risking yourself and your pregnancy. So there's other things to consider. And perhaps you could also get the infusion from your doctor. So you never know, like you could actually save a lot of time not having to go to the hospital if your doctor can do a procedure that might help you, whether it's stitching you up or giving you an infusion. For me, what also helped was to call my gynecologist because it was also related to my pregnancy. So any doctor that might be relative, give him a call. Even if it's not your doctor, just say, hey, I'm looking for advice, and maybe they won't be able to answer. Maybe they're not going to be super nice because they're not getting paid for it. But if they have the time, they'll probably answer you and give you all of the tips that you need. Another great piece of advice is that if it is a weekend or if it is a Sunday actually, and you are in need of medication. Well, there is actually a website that you can go onto and you can check out where the closest emergency pharmacy is open in your area. So you just punch in your postal code and then you click enter and the emergency pharmacies will come up. There should be one or more available in your city that are open on a Sunday or are open in the middle of the night. My husband went, I think, at 6 o'clock in the morning and the guy was sleeping, so we had to really keep ringing to try to wake him up. But we were then able to get the medication that I needed to keep me from constantly vomiting. So if you need medication right away, you don't necessarily have to go to the hospital to get it. You can also go to one of these emergency pharmacies that you can just easily check out online. Another tip would be that when you are going to the hospital, there is some confusion because depending on what you need done or who needs to check you, nobody really knows, and you're going to get answers from different people at all different points of time. So if you can actually call the hospital before coming, ask them who you need to contact. You're always typically going to be sent through the notify department first, so through the ER, where you then need to register yourself. But if you already know and you've already been told where you need to go, then you can kind of help assist them understand who they need to contact to try to get you that support quicker. So for me, I already knew exactly who I needed to talk to. I needed an internist to check my stomach, and then they were going to refer me over to the gynecologist. So I had no idea until they let me know on the phone, and they really had no idea when I was here. And when I had talked to the guy who was checking my stomach, he was just going to send me home. And then I said, no, they said on the phone I needed to also get the baby checked. So they have no idea. So you really have to learn how to speak up for yourself. That's something that I don't do well enough, unfortunately. And at the moment, due to COVID regulations, I wasn't able to have anybody here with me or helping me with the German language. So things do get tough. You have to be strong if you want to go to the hospital and if you want to get things done. And just one more thing to mention on that note is that it is really important to keep a list of questions, especially if you're not going to be able to go with your partner and if your German is not very good. It is really important to keep all the questions you want to ask lined up and listed on a piece of paper, on your phone, whatever, so that you can ask the doctors. Also, it does not hurt to ask when, for example, one doctor checks you and then they say, go back and sit down in the ER. I was sitting in the ER 3 or 4 different times to see different people, and then they get really confused and you get really confused. So if you're sitting there for a little bit and you're like, I feel like they forgot about me, go ask. They could have forgotten about you, but they could also be just as confused as you are. So I went up and I just said, es tut mir leid, mein Deutsch ist nicht so super, also ich verstehe nicht komplett, was ich jetzt machen muss. Soll ich irgendwo hingehen oder muss ich hier sitzen und warten? So then she picks up the phone, she called the last person I was in contact with, asked, okay, what are her next steps? And then they said, oh yeah, the next person should be here to check her shortly. In this case, I was then pushed a bit quicker into the next room or to see the next person. In my case, it made it much easier. So just don't be afraid to ask questions and make sure that you're prepared to ask questions in order to get those answers. The best example I can give you right now is that I had to do a bunch of different tests. Obviously, my urine, my stool tests, my blood tests. I have received absolutely no results. I cannot tell you why I was so sick. I'm assuming it's a stomach bug, but it could be something else. I don't know if it's listeria or salmonella. Nobody's told me. What I assume is that because nobody's told me, it's probably nothing to worry about. But if you want to know, you have to ask. And at this point, I'm just like, I don't want to ask because I just want to leave and be released. But they won't release me if I keep asking questions. So you kind of got to figure it out for yourself what's more important for you. I'm guessing they would have told me if something was wrong with my stool and with my urine or with my blood. And I'm just really happy that baby's okay. And right now they just said I have one more checkup tomorrow morning with the gyno, another ultrasound to see how my cervix is doing, and then they'll be able to release me with some next steps, whether it's getting a cerclage or being on strict bed rest or what have you. So yeah, I'm just trying to get the final answers out of them and then hopefully be released from the hospital. But again, it's just so important to ask questions, otherwise you're not going to be told. So I hope that these tips really help. I hope that you don't need them, that you won't be put in this situation. I'm not complaining about the hospitals here in Germany or the healthcare here in Germany at all. It is absolutely wonderful. The staff here have been super nice, and I'm very thankful for it. It's just not my favorite place to be, naturally. I also don't love the fact that this thing has to stay in your arm the entire duration of your stay here, and it is getting itchy and annoying, and I just showered. Ugh, tough. So fingers crossed that you guys stay healthy. I hope that I also recover quite quickly, and I really look forward to being back home, being able to make all my normal videos for you guys very soon. Vielen lieben Dank und wie immer, bis später.